lesson 27 in here. That's where it did the square of 14 down to the to where they formed it there. So you can see what page is in that version, but in this version it's page 224, lesson number 27. I'm trying to be a little better today about using the album. I apologize, because I know it's frustrating to not have something to go back and look at. So chapter 6 is where it gets into square root, but before that we're going to extract the formula for, where is it? So 33 is where they get into the equation for a trinomial, which is on page 238. There we go. So page 230 is algebraic binomial on the pegboard where they're extracting the formula. So today we're going to start talking about algebra. And I know you guys are really excited about algebra. And so you can go home and tell your parents that you're working on algebra. Yes. All right. So when we talk about algebra, one of the things that makes it kind of special is that it starts using letters for numbers. And so instead of writing down numbers, sometimes you're writing down letters and you're making these equations. So let's write down a word. It is variable. Variable. And a variable is a letter that we use to represent a number. One that's used a lot, very commonly, is x. So you'll see equations that have x written in them. You can even see that here on this card. See, it says x plus 7 equals 9. And in algebra, we're having to figure out what those letters represent. And so that's kind of a big part of what algebra is. Right now, when we're doing this next work, we're going to be using the letters A and B for this equation. So you've been working with this a lot, right? We've been squaring numbers, using the pegboard, and using these square guides. And so let me get some strips of paper. And we were naming the sides of our square. I'm just going to set this out of the way. We were naming the sides of our squares. Let's see, we're going to make this bigger. And so we would say that this was like 10 plus 3 times 10 plus 3. The first problem we did, remember that 14 we did? So it was 10 plus 4 times 10 plus 4. Now instead of 10 and 4, we're going to use the letters A. Let me get a different marker. Just that one. It's not thick enough for us to see. So we have A and B. And then down at the bottom, because it's a square, what would those be?
A and B.
A and B again. A and B. All right, and so we're going to name each of these rectangles using the letters A and B. So whenever I multiply A times A, what do I get?
A squared.
A squared. So this square is A squared. Here, we're multiplying B times A. So that rectangle is just B times A. All right, next, let me make some more little strips. Down here, we have A times B. And this square is B times B, or
B squared.
B squared. And then what was the next step that we would do? We would then take each of these rectangles, right, and we would add them all together. So a squared plus, everything is sticking to my fingers today, plus b times a plus a times b plus b squared. And we know that it doesn't matter what order we multiply numbers, right? We've been talking about that. So b times a is the same thing as a times b. So I could write those in either order. So I'm going to go ahead and just write it as a times b both times. So now I have a squared plus a times b plus a times b plus b squared. Now, how many a times b's do I have? Two. So I can even simplify it a little bit more. And I could say, and put these together and say I have 2 a times b. So when we hear what we call the binomial formula, it's a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, and it looks like this. So let's go ahead and write down what we just came up with. All right, so we've always written it like this, right? We had 10 plus 4, and then we'd put the squared, right? So now instead of 10 plus 4, we can write a plus b, and then a squared symbol, and that equals this equation, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So this is the binomial equation. We're going to be using it a lot, so eventually you'll just remember it and you'll be able to just say it, but you can always come back and you can figure out what it is again, because this is how we do it. So a plus b squared equals a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And we're going to be using this now to solve some of those problems that we were doing before. So let's just go back to our equation that we had done. The very first one we did was squaring. When we did 10 plus 4 squared. So in this equation, we could say that a equals 10 and b equals 4. So when we have these variables, a and b, and we have an equation, we can now replace that letter with the number that we've assigned to it. So if I wanted to figure out what 10 plus 4 squared was, let's see, I'm going to rewrite it because maybe I should have put that somewhere else. 10 plus 4 squared equals, everywhere it says a, I'm going to write 10. So it equals 10 squared plus 2ab. So 2 times a times, pause. Everywhere it says a, what are we supposed to write? 10, sorry. 10 times b, and everywhere it says b, we're going to write 4. And then b squared, so everywhere it says b, we're going to write 4, so plus 4 squared. And then we can do our arithmetic, right? 10 squared is 100. 2 times 10 is
20.
Plus, times 4 is 80. And then 4 squared is 16. And then like I've done before, I like to write these vertically so we can add them up easier. 180, 16. All right, start with the lowest place value. We have 6. 8 plus 1 is 9. And 1 equals 196. So a few other things that I'll point out as I'm doing this, right? So that when you're doing it, you can do it the same way. You'll notice I have my 10 plus 4 squared here equals, and then I wrote my equation afterward. Below that, I wrote another equal sign right below the equal sign here. I didn't have to write this again because now I know that each of these lines is also equal to this 10 plus 4 squared, right? And so you'll see this here. You'll see this when we're doing area. When we do geometry, we do this a lot. And this is kind of one of those more advanced ways of doing math. So you're kind of getting a preview on that before you get into algebra in middle school.